Some amazing higher power put you on this planet, Gaga, I'm telling you. Now, you obviously came from New York. You saw the news about bin Laden this week. As a New Yorker, how do you feel about that?
That was a very, very emotional night. I had just gotten off the plane, and I got all these emails that were saying, tweet about your Judas video, it's coming out. And I tweeted my Judas video premiere date, and then I arrived at the hotel and I turned the TV on and it said Osama bin Laden is dead, and I immediately erased my Twitter message and wrote that I felt that it was a historical moment for the fight against hatred. But as a New Yorker, it's very intense, and I mean, I've never really spoken about this before, but I was in New York on September 11th, and I watched the towers fall with all my girlfriends from the roof of our school. And the whole city was covered in ashes. And I remember my dad picked me up, and we couldn't reach my mom for like 10 hours because my mother worked right across the street from the World Trade Center.
My dad, too. He was at 26 Federal.
Wow, really?
Yeah, he was 26 Federal Plaza. It took him, we lived in the Poconos, and I was in Lancaster at a radio station on my way up in my career. And it took my dad literally 18 hours to go from Midtown, from Lower Manhattan, back to the Poconos on the border of, Pennsylvania and Jersey.
Yeah, because he probably had to walk.
Well, he had to walk. And then he couldn't get out of town, so he had to keep walking up. And I guess apparently he got across the river on one of the bridges, up in Westchester County. And it was just, tell me more about your day. You and your girlfriends, you couldn't get a hold of your mom?
Yeah, well, we watched, there was a television playing it, and we were all crying in the room. And then I remember we broke into the playground on the roof, and the teachers were all screaming at us to stay inside, but we couldn't even believe that it was real. So we just all broke in to the playground on the roof, and I just remember we actually watched the second tower fall because in New York you can see them. From any roof, we're so big, and I just remember we were all crying, and I remember leaving the school and walking with my dad home, and we still couldn't reach my mom, and we were all crying, and we saw all these really young guys from the market, from Wall Street, and they were all covered in soot, and all you could see was the water on their eyes from the tears. It was just a really intense day, and maybe if you're not from New York, it's not as intense for you, but I think for a lot of Americans it really was. And I think it's a difficult thing. Nobody wants to celebrate anyone's death, but it really was. I know it was something that meant a lot to the people of New York, especially those who lost lives that day. And
Wow. I never, you know what, when you strip all of the music, the art, the paparazzi, the gossip blogs and the web pages aside, Gaga, it's amazing to see your humanity.
Oh, well, I think you can see anyone's humanity in a moment like that. I mean, just hearing you talk about your dad reminds me of when my mom walked through the door and we all just started crying,
Oh, I saved an email from my father from that day when he basically told me the story. And it was just, when you look at it, I understand why a generation, because, 10 years ago, 18-year-old women were 8. I understand why the other night at the White House here in D.C., why we all felt like we needed to go down there to be a part of this history.
Right.
Not because it's President Obama, not because it's political, but because finally a generation is able to turn the page.
Right.
On this evil boogeyman that we've had to live with the fear of for the last 10 years.
Yeah.
And I don't, I know that there's a debate about should we see pictures, should we not see pictures, I think when you strip it all aside, this is a pivotal moment for us as people because finally good overcame.
Yes.
And so for all of us, we can find something to overcome bad with. Everything seems a lot less important today. A leaked video, crap being said about you on the internet.
I was trying to say is I don't get upset about those things anymore. I think maybe after touring so much, I came home and I'm just really happy to have the opportunity to make music, honestly.